If you knew how much power you had, and this is going to sound cliche from like a lot of new age spiritual speakers and whatnot, but you'll also hear the total polar opposite of certain speakers saying that you're not shit, and that you know, almost making it seem about something outside of you being bigger than you to some extent. See, it only appears to be that way. That's the whole thing. Everything is just appearing to be so. All right. There's conversations I've had with certain individuals just gardening alone, right? And one of the things that's very important to know is that when you're doing something that you absolutely love and you have a very big passion for, obviously you're going to be putting a certain energy into it that's going to basically thrive, which is called love, into your projects, because love is a building frequency, right? But when you absolutely love what you're doing, it's going to naturally just progress. But then there may be things that require discipline from you that you know it's for the betterment of something else. So, you know, you don't necessarily like to do it, but you'll hold a certain structure to it and it will thrive because you put work ethic into it. But did you absolutely have that unconditional love for it, or are you getting something out of it and you're not working for the outcome of the project? So there's a big difference about it. Like, for example, the gardening, I'm not making any money on it. Yet I love it so much that it actually energizes me. It energizes me even if I'm dead tired and I see something outside that can potentially be worked on in the garden. I'm going to do it. And the tiredness that I have goes away. In fact, I even forget to eat. That's the whole thing. I forget to eat. I forget to do whatever I have to do just because I'm so immersed into that project. Unconditional love, right? Some projects will require that discipline, but you're doing it for a specific outcome, which would be you making your own religion, right? You making your own religion through basically structure and discipline. But there's a different way to look at things too, because I was talking to somebody about do things outside of you exist. And I'm going to basically tie in a lot of what I was speaking about in my last video, not the gardening ones, but the most recent one that I spoke on, which is basically called how we simplify what others complicate about, let's say duality, non-duality, spirituality, individuality, all the alities and isms, you know what I'm saying? But the whole thing is, like for a spiritual person, do things outside of you exist? Right? And the whole thing is that from my perspective, from my point of view, whatever I'm not aware of or I know absolutely nothing about, technically doesn't exist. All right? It doesn't exist, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist. You get what I'm saying? The fact that it exists to others outside of you, let's say, for example, Jesus Christ or any deity or entity that you had no idea about, yeah, for me, it doesn't exist if I had no idea of it. But because others outside of me know about it and it exists in their psyche and reality, it already exists outside of me. However, I'm not aware of it, right? That's the whole thing. So it exists because others are reflections and versions of me. They're versions of me to some extent. And don't forget, your vibe attracts your tribe. So whatever vibrational state and frequency you're in, right, you'll attract certain people that may put you on to certain things. Information, things you didn't know about, deities and entities that you had no idea about, right? So now you're aware of it, and now it exists in your reality. How much power does it hold in your reality? Well, that depends on how much energy and attention you put into it, right? And then this is where we could look at it from a couple of different ways. These things are ideas, they're energies, right? Like a child, for example, will play with Thanos, Superman, Batman, Captain America, whatever it may be, right? He's playing with these toys. And in his imagination, he's bringing these things to life, but he's only playing with the energies, right? So this is why they tell you to be childlike, but not childish as an adult. You utilize these entities and deities, right? And you don't worship them outside of you being something bigger to you. You get what I'm saying? But you could play with the energies, but you also know when to put them down, right? You utilize these energies to your advantage, but you can use them as a tool in the process along with playing with them. But you don't worship them. That's the whole thing. You don't form a religion on it because, again, these things came out of the imagination of somebody else, like Thanos, Captain America, Batman. But Jesus Christ and all that, when you came into this existence, you were told about it. So it came out of the idea and imagination about somebody else, including the Bible and whatnot. But it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist, because these people are reflections and versions of you. So they exist, but they only have power and energy depending on how much power and energy you put into it. So it's there. It's not going to go away. You can't just erase it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be there. How much you put into it depends on how much influence or power it has in your life. You know? So I'll look at it like this now. When you have, let's say, certain projects that we're doing, right? Certain things that we're doing. Like, for example, if you have this character of Jesus Christ, these things that you see outside of you, and you start to empower these things outside of you as something bigger to you, that's a form of selling your soul. Because some people say, I let God, Jesus Christ guide me. He's my my pilot in life. That means you let this energy outside of you take the wheel. You know what I'm saying? And then the whole thing is that it also depends on your mentality toward the idea of what it is that you're talking about. So a lot of people start to say, well, if God exists, why is there so much evil in the world? Why is there, so much crime and like, let's say, pedophilia and so much corruption in the world, right? And all these things are there because pretend like there's nobody outside of you and you're the only one here playing this game by yourself. These things exist because they exist within you to some way, shape, or form. Okay? Now, these are things that are potentials that you can engage in and partake in, right? But we're looking at it from a perspective of morality, bad and good. So let's say, for example, you got God, right? God, and I've always said God is authority, but God is a frequency. God is not a person that you anthropomorphize as something that for you as a human to understand as something bigger to you. It's just a frequency, right? It's a consciousness. This is why when you start to hear these spiritual people tell you a new world awaits, or the universe is watching you, and it's like you watching yourself. Because the whole thing is that whatever you're doing in your reality, you can only lie to yourself. And the way that the universe is watching you or holding you accountable and whatnot is if you come out and say, well, I am aware now that I have an addiction and this is not serving me. Tomorrow I'm going to start my journey on this now. It appears that you're doing a good thing, but you're declaring a war against something that's now disagreeable with the patterns and habits that you originally were partaking in before. You are actually going to be experiencing obstacles because you're going to war against something. This accountability now is going to require discipline, right? Credibility. The government gives you a credit score, right? They give you a job, all depending on your work history, your accountability and credit, your responsibility toward the people, places, and things outside of you, right? But it all starts from self. That's why people say, how can I start to try to save the world, but I can't save my immediate family? But this can go even deeper. How could you save your immediate family if you can't save yourself first, right? So you have to be self-servient to some extent first, even though that sounds bad. But being self-servient and self-centered and selfish to some extent would be wise, because then when you put all that attention to self, you empower yourself to some extent. Gaining knowledge of self is still gaining knowledge of others. Having an understanding is going to have an understanding of yourself too at the same time. Inner and under is going to be in and out, right? Because the people, places, and things are there based on you. You're there because you created them into your reality as being a mirror or a teacher to you to some extent, right? Because you are basically a collection of the things that you grew up around, which is going to basically all be starting from the parents. So whatever your parents, all the influences you picked up, like if you were like your dad, you may grow up and attract a woman that your dad, like your mom was. You know what I'm saying? This is why I made a video where it's talking about even pornography, where they say fuck your mom, fuck your stepsister, and all that bullshit. I never understood what the fuck all that shit was. But then upon further understanding and observing, you basically attract a woman that is like your mom to some extent, right? Even the people that you interact with that become your immediate family may have been people that you were already around growing up, right? Generational curses or generational wealth, whatever it may be. Once you become aware, you can continue to ride those programs, or you can override them by deleting those programs, but it's going to require very, very big discipline for you to disconnect from what you were already around to basically rewrite the programs that you want to write yourself. Because to some extent, you trying to rewrite those programs and you keep partaking in the programs that are outside of you, it's going to be hard to overwrite those programs, right? Because you start to always stop thinking, you know? You run on programs. Your subconscious mind this is why if you really want to observe it, your stomach is a subconscious mind. So you have your conscious mind that you're here observing your thinking realm, right? And you think you have to eat, but when you're consuming information and you're not aware, it's molding and shaping your reality to some extent because you're molding and shaping to information, right? That you're listening to outside of yourself. So you're processing it. And what you get out of it is how you express yourself. You may even pick up certain characters that you may have listened to along the way and whatnot. When you're eating food, it's information that was modified by laboratories outside of you to have you now be genetically modified in your reality because your body's like a robot. And you're not aware that the robot is no different than the people outside of you, like NPCs, right? When you have a child and you start to see, oh, my child has ADHD, and you let a doctor tell you that this is a disease, and then they start to medicate, you put the faith and trust in these doctors, this child is a reflection of you. I already made a video on how you are observing the reptilian side of you in your reality. So your children are a mirror and a reflection of you. So if your child is categorized to have ADHD, start to figure out why. Why did that all of a sudden grow to all-time heights, ADHD, in children, when that wasn't a thing back then? Because there's a big collective shift. There's a big awareness. People are waking up on the planet. They're becoming a lot more spiritual, a lot more privy to the game, right? Because there's a difference between waking up to the game or waking up in the game. You wake up in the game or you wake up to the game, right? So you are actually manifesting these physical forms, which are aspects of yourself in physical form directly in your reality. So these children categorized to have ADHD are basically disconnected from reality because of, we call it attention deficit. It's not attention deficit. Because here's the thing though, if they're awake, it's no different than that being an expression of you being a parent that's waking up to the game and you're becoming a little bit more detached to this game. So you manifest children that may mirror that, and you could put that as a disease and then you medicate them. I had one guy tell me that he had a child and he was severely attention deficit, and that once they gave him a vaccine, he became laser focused and he became a lot better. He was recommending me to do that to my child because that worked for his child. But what is he doing spreading that information? He's spreading mind viruses to different people that may relate to that because a lot of kids are now coming out with ADHD. You see how the fucking mind viruses spread? That could be positive or negative, but may appear to be positive. The government may appear to be positive. And again, I'm not polarizing to ideas of what's bad and what's good. I'm giving you my opinions on camera. But you got guys like Pablo Escobar. You got guys like El Chapo, who became so influential and so powerful that they made movies and TV series on them, right? But then check this out though. At what expense? When you go up a big system like this, you can have it the easy way or you can have it the hard way. The easy way for you to would be for you to have that experience, which would be so fucking lavish that they'll make books and things out of you, but you get shot down and get killed in the game. That would be the easy way out. The hard way would be how it happened to El Chapo, where he got arrested and he's now serving hard time. We're all serving hard time to some extent in this reality. It's just that it goes by layers. You could really serve hard time if you become a virus that's disagreeable to the system. The system is no different than your body. If you have a virus and it's not in harmony with your virus, your body will isolate it, right? And it will process it and keep it isolated or get rid of it. One of the two, but it builds a memory. So when you have guys like these criminals, they build memory and now they build defenses toward them. So what Pablo Escobar once did would be very difficult for another criminal to replicate because of the way technology has advanced, right? But is this necessarily really advancements? It's more policing if you really look at it. Because we once built these amazing structures like the ancient pyramids, these megaliths and monoliths, these things like, for example, that Nikola Tesla once came out with. As far as free energy, all these things. The car that once ran on water by Stanley Myers, right? All these people disappeared, but that technology never really got put out into the public. But why? Because it's all in the interest of a profit. I'm only giving you my opinion, so I'm making sure that that disclaimer puts out. You have your opinions, I'm going to share my opinions. None of these things are backed up by science or fact, so you don't have to listen to me, okay? But what is the purpose of this technology not being pushed out? You get what I'm saying? Because there's money to be made. But the only reason money has to be made is because money is what keeps you in this system working, distracted from working on you to be able to see where the real energy and power is. I just started this video with when you start to do things for specific purposes that energize you. Like, I'm not making physical money off my garden, but I'm energizing myself I could be dead tired, but yet I get so much energy just doing gardening. And this is just on a light level I'm giving you, because you could go into many different examples with this. But if I'm doing that project, right, I gain energy to the point that sometimes I start to realize certain things. And I actually come out on camera. There's times I've even mentioned this before in previous videos, that I'll make videos and I'm tying so many things from things I've heard before based on memory that has tied so many things just observing the system of how gardening works, how the soil works, how the environment interacts with the soil underneath when things are just appearing to be separate, but yet there's a symbiotic relationship happening between everything happening above ground and below ground. How the environment, the insects, the bugs, the prey predator world that may look to be bad, but it's actually a good thing. Like I mentioned, the aphids attacking my tree, but then I see the swarm of ladybugs coming in, balancing itself out. How do we know that these aphids aren't doing what they're supposed to do there? They're supposed to be eaten by ladybugs. When they're eaten by because look, you got the ants herding these aphids like sheep. So what ends up happening now? When you see this now, you say, well, oh, that's weird. So when you see this now, you see, okay, when we have these animals that are in slaughterhouses and whatnot that these vegans are protecting, how do we know that they're not supposed to, based on there's no cause of anything, but in this realm, there's a cause and effect, how we're observing it, right? If I do something, there's an effect based on a cause, right? We can call that karma. In the physical realm, karma means incarnate, okay? There's no cause of anything because there's technically nothing out here to be a fucking cause of. Nothing is happening. There appears to be things happening, okay? This goes into many non-duality topics that I'll make in another video, all right? Because everything is you, all right? But even that requires balance, because people even become nihilistic by going into the topic of non-duality, or they can actually get into the area of non-duality because they're escaping from something that they're not happy with here. That's running away or escaping from something. Are you really into non-duality by realization, or are you into non-duality only because you're trying to disassociate yourself from all the responsibilities and accountabilities? No different than you having a child and not taking care of your child, not being responsible for your children, okay? All the things that are outside of you, God frequency, will put tests to you. But that's you doing it to yourself to some extent. Because here's what I've also noticed. There may be things that astrologers read. Oh, at this time, these things, this is the way the energy is. And you know what's crazy, though? You know what's crazy? And this is why I got to shout out Brother Panic. Because a lot of what Brother Panic says is actually things that I resonate with. So there's certain speakers that you'll listen to, and you won't just say, I wonder if this is the right information. You just know that it's the right information. There's other people that you may listen to that you really got to observe and say, I wonder if this is the right information. But when you see things like, this is the right information, like for example, Brother Panic said one thing that's very, it stuck out to me. He said, when you are thinking about what you're doing, it's coming from ego. But when you're just doing it, okay, and you don't realize that you're doing it, but it aligns with things that maybe something was read from the stars, like the energies are aligned a certain way, that's your subconscious. And this is why I said there's times where I'll listen to astrologers and things that they say that the energy is a certain way or retrogrades or whatnot, And then I'm like, God damn, I was already just fucking doing that. Or I'm experiencing that already firsthand and I'm already reacting to it in this way. Subconsciously, everything is happening in harmony, but it's not to say that it's gonna happen for everybody. It starts from your attitude toward life to begin with. If your attitude is positive toward the perspective that you have in life, subconsciously everything starts to work out, because the stars, you're not at the mercy of the stars. The stars are there as a blueprint. But the whole thing is, you'll be in line with the energies working in your favor when your vibe is at a certain frequency. Okay? Balanced, but we can look at that in many ways too, because balance could be comfort. Comfort, there's no growth, right? So there's no bad and good. And your attitude is everything. Hot and cold. Who is to say is hot cold, or is cold the bad guy? Is cold the bad guy or the good guy, or is hot? Hot, right? Can be, oh shit, inflammatory, inflammation, hot, degeneration, destruction, right? But there's also circulation. There's life in heat. When you see alkaline, that's the good guy. Cold, cool, right? But then you got that, and you may say, well, that's also frozen, stagnation. What determines how you change these things is your attitude, with your temperament. When something's too cold, you can actually spice things up, heat things up. Get the circulation moving. When it's too cold, add some heat to it. I mean, when something's too hot, add some cool to it. Man, that's a cool dude, man. He calmed me down. You know, cool things down with your attitude, temperament. When you see your balance, right? When you're balanced, you have a little bit, you're like in the eye of the storm, right? You can make better, wise choices and decisions because you're not in the chaotic realm, but you're actually in the most calm state. But your focus determines the decisions you make in that eye of the hurricane. Because in the eye of the hurricane, you're the one basically observing everything. You're in the calm state, but you can also lose if you're not focused, right? You may say there's too much chaos going around. I need more calmness to be able to focus. See, a true master can meditate in the middle of chaos. Which is why I said, if you're in the eye of the hurricane, your focus determines the type of decisions that you make. See, the whole thing is you're the boss and CEO of everything, man. So you can have a boss, right? And your boss can come to you and tell you, man, what's going on? Because it happened to me. Man, what's going on with your numbers, man? Look, your numbers dipped this week. Looks like this, looks like that. Am I going to sit there and tell my boss, hey, man, it's not my fault. It's this guy. My workers did this, or this guy stopped me, or the businesses weren't selling my product because of this, blah, 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 blah. He hired me for a purpose, and that's to bring up the business. So do you think that my boss wants to hear me give him excuses? The first thing I do is actually start to talk about the game plan. I discarded everything he just told me about my numbers being dipped. I'm already going to show him the game plan I have. Well, yeah, I know, I got that, but look, check this out. This is what I got planned for this coming week. I got these workers I'm going to put in these places. I got this guy I'm going to send to this place. Since this guy wasn't selling my product, it could be a, let's say, training and development issue where they may not have known how to sell my product, so maybe it's a training issue. So I sent this guy there to actually hold a seminar to how to sell our product. And now I feel like the numbers are going to go up now because now product knowledge goes up. It could be a number of different things, but I gave him a game plan. That's what a boss wants to see. But the boss is not bigger than you, because without you, listen, without you, look, you have to be a tool. Like, you know how, like Israel Adesanya said one thing that stuck out to me. He goes, I'm a tool to be used, but I don't want to be misused, right? And if you're a tool and you can't be used, then you're useless, right? But you got to look at it from a balanced perspective, right? You're the CEO. This camera's, matter of fact, like my video and I'll make a part 2 if I missed out something over here. We'll talk soon.